differentiate between Kilifi North and Kilifi South. They think that the Honorable Chonga is the member for Kilifi North. I know. It is a table office. I'm saying they have indicated that the Honorable Kitty Chonga is a member for Kilifi North. I am correcting that you are indeed the member for Kilifi South. Proceed, Honorable Chonga. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What is happening? It is the people who are supposed to facilitate you.
Thank you. I think he has been a DJ before. Mr. Speaker, I stand to present public petition number 38 of 2020 regarding dispossession of land belonging to Dindiri, Makata, and Kaole villages in Chasimba Ward, Kilifi South constituency. I, the undersigned, on behalf of the residents of Dindiri, Makata, and Kaole villages of Kilifi South constituency, draw the attention of the House to the following. That Makata CBO was registered as a community-based organization on the 26th of August 2020 under certificate number 49145 and has membership comprising of residents of Dindiri, Makata, and Kaole villages of Chasimba Ward in Kilifi South constituency. That the residents of these villages, comprising of a population of over 65,000, live on the ancestral land registered under plot number 152/4/ mainland north, measuring 1,776 acres. That the residents recently discovered with dismay the existence of copies of a title deed dated 1908 that allegedly assigns ownership of the land to an absentee individual by the name of Mbarak Islam Abed. That this alleged subdivision and title deed issuance is irregular and highly questionable in view of, among other reasons, that the fact that it was issued over 110 years ago during the British colonial era, yet at independence in 1963, all land was freed from colonial oversight and transferred to the government to safeguard the welfare of indigenous people occupying their respective lands. That Wachoni and the Giriama ancestors had settled in the Dindiri, Makata, Kaole forest area for over 100 years without any dispute or population, and had built houses, grown crops such as coconut palms, cashew nuts, maize, cassava, and mangoes, and reared livestock. That over the decades, the community expanded exponentially and established numerous social infrastructure such as the Dindiri Nursery School, Makata Primary School, Kaole Primary School, Dindiri Secondary School, churches, restaurants, saloons, shops, and other commercial establishments. That graveyards that are almost 100 years old, as well as old mango trees are a testament to the fact that the residents have lived on this ancestral land for decades. That the area residents are the legitimate owners of the land plot number 152/IV/Mainland North as a community by virtue of being the occupants of the land for centuries. That efforts to address this matter with relevant authorities have not borne much fruit, and that the matter in respect of which this petition is made is not pending before any court of law or any constitutional body. Therefore, your humble petitioners pray that the National Assembly, through the Department Committee on Lands, inquires into the matter with a view to securing the revocation of the title deed irregularly issued to Mr. Mbarak Islam Abed to facilitate subdivision of the land and the title deeds issuance to the legitimate and bona fide residents of Dindiri, Makata, and Kaole villages. And your petitioners will ever pray, presented by me, Honorable Ken Chonga. Thank you.
I think there's a problem. We need the member for Nyandu all the time to assist, I think. No, now it's okay. The petition is referred to the Committee on Lands. The next order.
Order number 5, papers.
The leader of majority or majority whip, whoever.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House. Today, Tuesday, November the 3rd, 2020. Legal notice number 191 of 2020 relating to the retirement benefits, forms and fees, amendments, regulations of 2020, and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury and from the National Treasury. Legal notice number 192 of 2020 relating to the retirement benefits, mortgage loans amendment, regulations 2020, and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury. Legal notice number 193 of 2020 relating to the retirement benefits, umbrella retirement benefit schemes, amendment, regulations 2020, and the explanatory memorandum from the National Treasury. Legal notice number 197, 2020, relating to the public finance management credit guarantee scheme regulations of 2020 from the National Treasury and the explanatory memorandum. Number 5, 2020 budget review and outlook paper from the National Treasury and Planning. Number 6, the sessional paper number 2 of 2020 on the veterinary policy from the State Department for Livestock. 7th, the sessional paper number 3 of 2020 on livestock policy from the State Department for Livestock. Number 8, the report of the Auditor General on the financial statements in respect to the Kenya Post Office Savings Bank for the year ended 30th of June 2018 and the certificates therein. And lastly, report of the Steering Committee on the implementation of the Building Bridges to a United Kenya Task Force report. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, we get the Chairman, Departmental Committee on Defense, Honorable Kato.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. The report of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations on the vetting of nominees for appointment to the position of ambassadors and high commissioners, stroke permanent representatives. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chairman, Departmental Committee on Communication and Information, Honorable Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Reports of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation on 1. The vetting of Ms. Immaculate Kasahid, the nominee for appointment as a Data Commissioner, and the Kenya Information and Communication Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2019. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Vice Chair, Committee on Delegated Legislation.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020. Reports of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of 1. The Special Economic Zones Amendment Regulations 2020, that is legal notice number 33 of 2020. Number 2, the Crops Sugar General Regulations 2020, legal notice number 99 of 2020. Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Honorable Koto.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Defense and Foreign Relations in its report on the vetting of nominees for appointment as ambassadors, high commissioners, and permanent representatives laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 132, Subclause 2, Subclause E of the Constitution and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of the following persons as high commissioners, ambassadors, and permanent representatives. 1. Ambassador John Tippis, High Commissioner to Canberra, Australia. 2. Ms. Immaculate Wambua, High Commissioner to Ottawa, Canada. Number 3. Ambassador Catherine Mwangi, High Commissioner to Pretoria, South Africa. 4. Ambassador Martin Kimani, Permanent Representative to the United Nations, New York. 5. Ambassador Jean Kimani, Permanent Representative to UN Habitat, Nairobi. 6. Ambassador Tom Amolo, Ambassador to Berlin, Germany. 7. Mr. Lindsay Kiptines, Ambassador to Bangkok, Thailand. 8. Ambassador Daniel Wambora, Ambassador to Bujumbura, Burundi. 9. Ms. Stella Munyi, Ambassador to Harare, Zimbabwe. 10. Major General retired Samuel Nandwa, Ambassador to Juba, South Sudan. 11. Major General retired Ngewa Mukala, Ambassador to Khartoum, Sudan. 12. Ambassador Benson Ogutu, Ambassador to Moscow, Russia. 13. Mr. Joshua Gatimo, Ambassador to Tehran, Iran. And 14. Ambassador Tabu Irina, Ambassador to Tokyo, Japan. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Kisang.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation in its report on the vetting of a nominee for appointment as the Data Commissioner laid on the table of the House today, Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, and pursuant to Section 6.4 of the Data Protection Act 2019 and Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Ms. Immaculate Kasahid as the Data Commissioner. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Jagagwe.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Special Economic Zones Amendment Regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, and pursuant to Section 18 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and Standing Orders 210 4B, annuls in its entirety the Special Economic Zones Amendment Regulations 2020, legal notice number 33 of 2020. Second, Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the reports of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the Crops, Sugar, General Regulations 2020, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, November 3rd, 2020, and pursuant to Section 18 of the Statutory Instruments Act 2013 and Standing Orders 210 4B, annuls in its entirety the Crops, Sugar, General Regulations 2020, legal notice number 99 of 2020. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Vice Chairman, the Select Committee on the National Government Constituency Development Fund, Honorable Omar Maalim. You don't have a card? No, you have now.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that pursuant to the provision of Section 43(4) of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Act 2015 and paragraph 5, 2, and 10 of the National Government Constituency Development Fund Regulations 2016, this House approves the list of nominees for appointment to the following 8 constituency committees of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, laid on the table of the House on Wednesday, August 5, 2020. 1. Ainab Koi. 2. Bomet East. 3. Buri. 4. Dagoretti South. 5. Elema Ravine. 6. Kitutu Church South. 7. Nyeri Town. 8. Dagoretti North. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well, honourable members. Honourable members, I did indicate that I had a short communication to make. Honourable members, as you may be aware, last week, specifically on the 29th of October, the High Court Constitutional Petition number 284 of 2019, as consolidated with Constitutional Petition number 353 of 2019, issued, amongst other orders, an order for cessation of consideration of all pending bills in both Houses of Parliament until the requirements of Article 110, Clause 3 of the Constitution is first fulfilled. The judgment also contains other related declaratory orders that shall have a direct implication on the legislative work of this House. Honourable members, consequently, on Friday, 30th of October 2020, the House Business Committee did meet and deliberate on the matter of the judgment and took a firm view that the judgment is unconstitutional, erroneous, and flawed in law. Honourable members, the House Business Committee in particular noted with grave concern that the court had misdirected and misapplied the Constitution on the following issues, amongst others. 1. The High Court failed to consider the architectural design of the bicameral parliamentary system under our Constitution, 2010. The Constitution has clearly set out the mandate of the two Houses of Parliament. Article 109 of the Constitution mandates the National Assembly exclusively to enact bills not concerning county governments without the participation of the Senate. The Senate is only mandated to participate in the enactment of laws concerning county governments. 2. The High Court's judgment has effectively curtailed the National Assembly's mandate, specifically under Article 109, Clause 3 of the Constitution, by requiring that any bill not concerning county governments must as well be considered by the Senate, a matter that is exclusively left to the National Assembly. 3, the judgment has also muted the provisions of Article 114 of the Constitution as run together with Article 109, Clause 5 of the Constitution regarding money bills. Number 4, the effect of the High Court's judgment is that members of Parliament and committees in either houses of Parliament cannot introduce bills in their respective houses without the concurrence of the two speakers. This curtails members' rights to initiate legislations and their rights to represent the people of the constituencies and special interests, particularly in the National Assembly. 5, the judgment also attempts to set aside previous judgments of the High Court and the Court of Appeal, which had validated some of the 23 laws. For instance, the Finance Act of 2018, the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Act, the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act, number 5 of 2018, the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2018, and the Statute Law Miscellaneous Amendment Act 2018 and 2019, amongst others. 6, the judgment has grave implications on the general presumption of constitutionality of a statute and the legislative sovereignty, and will affect government taxation measures, government international commitments, reforms and policy decisions already taken in relation to various acts of Parliament as enacted by this House. Honourable members, in view of the foregoing, I therefore wish to inform the House that the House Business Committee resolved as follows in regard to the High Court judgment. 1, that the National Assembly does appeal the decision of the High Court in Constitutional Petition number 284 of 2019 as consolidated with Constitutional Petition number 353 of 2019, and that in the meantime, no legislative business will be undertaken by the House in the coming days, whether from the National Assembly or from the Senate, pending a way forward on the decision contained in the High Court's judgment, while seeking an order of stay or setting aside of the said judgment by the Court of Appeal. I thank you, honourable members. Yes, Honourable Junet. Oh, sorry. Honourable Kimunya, you want to? What is it?
Yes, thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Okay.
I'm sure Honourable Junet wants to ventilate on the same. It's really a sad situation where obviously the courts have decided in their infinite wisdom that what all the work we've done in this House, basically from 2013 to now, is by extension that all those bills are of dubious constitutional validity. Because much as we have listed, they listed 23 bills. This is what was sent to them. But by extending to even say that even what is in process should be stopped because it risks suffering the same invalidity on the basis that the two speakers have not been seen together declaring a concurrence that this one is this or having signed a paper. Yet, Mr. Speaker, I also know, because I've attended a few of these functions, after the assent of a bill, or at the day of assent, and the signature by the President, I see the two speakers there. So if they are happy at the point of signing, doesn't that signify this? It validates whatever that they must have concurred at the beginning. But because of these issues of people just working on very pedantic reasoning that we can't see evidence that you concurred. So the bill must have been illegal or unconstitutional ab initio. Now, the risk, obviously, I see, Mr. Speaker, is that yes, the 23 have been declared null and void. We have a 9-month window to then ratify. Now, once something is unconstitutional, it's dead. So there's no reawakening. I don't know where for us mere mortals, that's the confusion we have. So the appropriation bill of 2019 has been declared null and void. But money was appropriated, including to the judiciary, including the entire country. And the appropriation bill then lapsed. So, Mr. Speaker, you may recall in the judgment, in the advisory to the President by the Chief Justice to disbar this House, he re-emphasized that there's no pain, there's no gains without pain, and that some pain is necessary for people to obey, to insist on the rule of law. It seems to be the same argument that the judges have put on this one, because I'm aware, they were made aware that there are grave consequences to whatever decision they make. Because when you nullify laws that are already in place, right now people are already refusing to pay taxes. People are refusing to all those laws, basically. And by extension, it's not just the 23. Even between 2019, and last week, all laws were passed, followed the same process. So they must be wrong. Between 2013, when the bicameral system came, to 2018, it was the same process. So we have opened for the omutatas and all to go to nullify all these laws. Now, I would like to ask perhaps that we should advise the control of budget and the National Treasury. First of all, to freeze IFMIS, because if the Appropriation Act of 2019 is illegal, the Appropriation Act of 2020 has been done in exactly the same way. So it is also invalid. So we should ask the control of budget and the National Treasury to freeze all payments so that people can wake up to the reality of the kind of judgments they are giving in this country. Because I thought the law was supposed to serve the greater public good, but it's now looking to serve some myopic, pedantic interests from an activism perspective. And perhaps even further, to ask that let the judges show they can absorb the pain by us freezing, in the first instance, the payments, the illegal payments to the judiciary, because it will be so unfortunate for a judiciary, the one that says that we should adhere to the rule of law, to benefit from an illegal act. So they should be the first one to say we are not even receiving any money because it's illegal. Then we move to the Senate, who took us to court. Then the others, I don't see why we should punish wananchi for things that have come from some unconstitutional implementation. Those can come as second or third tier. But in the first instance, we would like to ask the Treasury, probably as of today, to freeze the IFMIS system, especially for the judiciary, then within the PSC for the Senate, and when they feel the pain, they will start reasoning, so that we don't actually get, like, we can't do business here. Our constitutional mandate is being interfered with. We are actually being stopped from doing what we should be doing, and because we want to obey, we will stop. But we also, because we want to obey, we want to ask the Treasury to also obey and stop paying, especially to those two institutions. Mr. Speaker, I believe with that, we'll be able now to get into the negotiation of what we do next. I think with those remarks, I think I'll leave it there. The lawyers in the House might help us, but since you are a lawyer yourself and you've already interpreted for us, let's see what we can do to save this country from this kind of unwarranted interference in the jurisdiction of the National Assembly.
Honorable Junet, you want to, but actually it is not just the Appropriations Act of 2019. It is the Appropriations Act of 2018, the Supplementary Appropriations Act 2018, Appropriations Act 2019, and even the 2020. So, Honorable Junet, what's the...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to appreciate your communication and the decision of the House business, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, this communication today proves that this is a House that upholds the rule of law. We've seen a judgment that has been made by the High Court, and we have decided to appeal to the Court of Appeal. It shows that we respect the courts, as Mr. Speaker, unlike what they were thinking before, that we don't respect them. But having said, Mr. Speaker, the day I learned of this ruling, which was last week, I was shocked because I thought those judges, maybe they were using the constitution of another country, either Nigeria, Uganda, or somewhere, Mr. Speaker. Because, Mr. Speaker, the constitution is very clear. As lawyers say, the law is very clear, in black and white. And this is a constitution that we have been using since 2013. We were the 11th Parliament was the first Parliament to implement the 2010 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, under the bicameral system. And these are issues that have been canvassed on this floor, Mr. Speaker, under your leadership. And fortunately, you have been the Speaker since that time. And this is not the first time senators have gone to court. They went to court on the division of revenue issue. They were given advisory, which never worked. Now they got a ruling. Mr. Speaker, if now the ruling is saying that the appropriation bill of 2018, the supplementary bill act, the appropriation act of 2019, and the other subsequent supplementary acts were unlawful, then I expect the judiciary to return the money they have been using, Mr. Speaker. They were using illegal money. Themselves, they have declared those acts are illegal. So that means they should refund the exchequer the money that they have been using, Mr. Speaker. Including the allowances, everything they have been using, including the food they have been consuming. They must be surcharged from today, Mr. Speaker. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, when we passed the cybercrime bill, I remember they suspended certain clauses of the bill first, before they declared illegal. And 3 days later, the Chief Justice was on record complaining how social media people are fighting it. And that bill was supposed to address the same thing. You remember, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, this is the problem of the judiciary now. They don't look at the national good, the national interest of the country. The Constitution is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that money bills, as you said, 114, is the business of this House. How do you discuss funds or monies that you don't know how they are collected? You don't oversight KRA, you don't oversight Treasury. Mr. Speaker, if it was me as a politician, I would just discard that ruling. I would have just say we just ignore it. Because it's Mr. Speaker, but now because we are a country of rule of law, we will appeal. But Mr. Speaker, when now the BBI is proposing somewhere for people to complain, they are talking issues like this. When we are saying we need an ombudsman, because today I will have written to the ombudsman of the judiciary, telling him these 3 judges have done full of themselves. But when we say, now whom do you complain to, Mr. Speaker? Other than going to appeal at the Court of Appeal, you just die in your house with anger. But if today the ombudsman was in place at the judiciary, I will have written to him officially as a member of parliament that what these 3 judges have done is wrong. Can you look at it and take my complaint to the JSC, Mr. Speaker? That is why I am saying that people should open up their eyes and see the kind of problems the judiciary is causing these problems. As much as they are doing good work, but there are serious issues, Mr. Speaker. They are injecting everything and anything that they think is not going their way, Mr. Speaker. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that let us appeal. I hope the Court of Appeal will give us favor. I will not come to Bunge, Mr. Speaker. There is no legislation here. My work is to legislate, and the court has stopped. Until we get an injunction, we appeal. So, Mr. Speaker, I am away at home. Don't declare my seat vacant for missing 8 seats, Mr. Speaker, because the courts have stopped me from coming to Parliament, Mr. Speaker, to legislate. Those few remarks. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I think, Honourable, let me hear from the leader, Honourable John Bandy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm a bit hesitant, but this forces us to be close to discussing the conduct of the judges. But I think what we are expressing here, Mr. Speaker, you'll allow us, is general concern about the constitutionalism in this country. Mr. Speaker, I think the mistake we made, and I stand indicted because I was in the 10th Parliament, we actually allowed ourselves, right from 9th Parliament, we allowed civil society to take over an assignment that was so critical that the people's representatives should have taken keen interest and played a bigger role in. That is the role of coming up with a new constitution. Mr. Speaker, if you look at this constitution, there are issues that clearly should have not been in this constitution. And we should have come out very clearly on if a bill does not concern counties, it should be National Assembly. There was no need even to talk of the two speakers to concur, to talk, to agree, to sweet talk each other, seduce each other. Really, that was completely unnecessary. But we are where we are, Mr. Speaker, today because of allowing the role of members of parliament to be executed by other players outside the bracket of people's representatives. Because this civil society, they are doing a good job. But they are supposed to just hold us accountable, but they cannot come up with a document as important as the Constitution to govern the people of a country, and they have not been elected. So they are speaking for who? They are supposed to hold us to account. But having said that, Mr. Speaker, let me just say something quickly on this matter. The 23 laws, it shocks me that the court can pronounce itself on laws that have been passed and ask that those laws are to be annulled. Mr. Speaker, what the courts would have done, in my view, the furthest they could have gone, was to talk about future, going forward, to advise that this is the way the two houses should relate. That, to me, would have made sense. But going to the extent of even talking of the Appropriation Bill and Appropriation Act, which is very clear. And I wonder, Mr. Speaker, I think sometimes the lawyers, before they make judgment, they should also be seeking professional input on certain areas which are not directly legal from the professionals. Because the appropriation, if there is anything that is provided clearly in the Constitution as the function of National Assembly, is the issue of appropriation. And it is clear that the estimates are tabled in National Assembly, they are discussed, the committee seeks public views, the report is done to the House, that report is translated into appropriation bill, which then is passed by National Assembly. How on earth could someone imagine to annul such a process, which is so clear in the Constitution, and insist that even that one, you need to seek opinion of the Senate Speaker, as if you are an idiot, Mr. Speaker. This is clear. You can read it and understand it. And by the way, the Constitution talks to the interpretation of the Constitution should be done in a way that promotes the values of that Constitution. Now, when you come and do the complete opposite, because you are the judge, and that is why those who are opposing ombudsman for judiciary, please change your mind. Stop playing politics. Judiciary also needs someone to oversight them. The legislature, now you can see the judiciary is pronouncing itself on our work. The executive, the judiciary does the same. Parliament is here to oversight the executive. Who oversights this judiciary? Nobody. They think they are law unto themselves. We need somebody where we can also express our frustration. Because now, when we talk, we just talk here and engage with them as a house. But there is no one to check what the judiciary does. So, Mr. Speaker, as I agree with your ruling, I just want to with all due respect to the leader of majority, caution that let's not take any drastic measure that may hurt other players, people who probably are not even party to this process, or what the High Court did. Let us see how best we can deal with this matter. And I think the direction the House Business Committee has taken is the best. Let us appeal it, but Kenyans should engage. We should discuss the powers of the judiciary. And they should know that much as we respect their powers, they should also respect the powers of other arms of government. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry, honour members, I can see a number of you want to comment, but let me just say this, honour members, because we, as House Business Committee, we have taken a position that we appeal that judgment. Maybe we just live with that. But just to remind the House that in the last Parliament, there was a bill proposed by the Honourable Peter Kaluma, which was seeking to amend some of the aspects of Article 165 of the Constitution with regard to the powers of the High Court. Of course, you know, it was actually passed by this House, 2/3. But as happens normally, it found its water on the other side. It never saw the light of day. But I think more importantly, the lessons to learn from this is we have several other decisions of the High Court clearly saying that the provisions of Article 110(3) requiring the speakers of the two houses to resolve any issue. In fact, it's not about concurrence. I'm surprised the judges were talking about concurrence. The ones used, and we have used those same ones in our standing order 121. Speakers shall resolve any issue, any question. And other judges have interpreted that to say a question must therefore arise. An Appropriations Act that's correctly pointed out by both the Honorable Kimunya and Honorable John Bandi is a bill dealing with authority to withdraw money from the consolidated fund to pay for services in all other national state organs. Because the county assemblies always do their own appropriations bills to authorize expenditure from the county revenue funds. A finance bill is a bill that doesn't concern counties. And Article 109, Clause 3 is very clear. Bills which do not concern counties are to be passed only in the National Assembly, after which they are sent for assent. I mean, that is the Constitution. We are not making it. And that's why several judges in the past have said there's no need for concurrence, because the bill has come from the National Treasury. It is seeking to raise funds, it's seeking to have money withdrawn from the consolidated fund to fund all arms of government at the national level, including constitutional commissions and other independent offices, including that of the Auditor General. Now, surely those are not, there's nothing that touches the functions of county governments. The bills concerning county governments have been clearly defined in Article 110, Clause 1, that they are bills which touch on the election of county speakers and the county members of the county assemblies, or a bill which is referred to in Chapter 12, which is a public finance chapter. More specifically, indeed, 217 and 218. Those are the bills which would concern counties. But a bill to provide for cybercrime, in fact, the Court of Appeal itself has that when that law was taken there for challenge, the Court of Appeal said this does not concern counties, and it is constitutional. The way it has been passed by the National Assembly is proper. So I don't understand whether the three judges who are now sitting on appeal on that other judgment of their superiors. So I know the House Business Committee has considered this matter. I'm sure sense will prevail. But I think, more importantly, in my view, I think the point at which interpretation of the Constitution is to be placed is a matter that, going forward as a country, we ought to be very careful. It can't be one judge here, another one there, another. Then you collect those ones from the outer stations, you bring them. You know, they have been dealing with very other small matters of pregnancy compensation and things like those. So you bring the matters of constitution interpretation, it becomes very complex. because they are dealing with other smaller issues out there. So you congregate them into Nairobi, the city becomes very complex also. I think as a country, in order to provide uniformity, we need to be very careful. And that was the part of the reason of the amendment proposed by the Honorable Kaluma in the last Parliament. We need to have this thing for uniformity, so that once the interpretation has been given, once it has been given, it binds everybody. It is with finality. But now you get one saying this way, another one saying the other one, another. Now there is total confusion on interpretation of same provisions of the Constitution. But I'm saying this because the honourable members, I'm aware that many of you are congregating somewhere over the weekend. I think this is a matter that you need to address. The powers of the High Court as provided for in Article 165, even the power to interfere with the processes, consideration for which has been given in the Constitution. If a committee of a House of Parliament, for instance, insists of a matter, how is it that now somebody else will rush to court and say, stop? I mean, this thing, those are matters that need to allow the process to end. If somebody is not happy, is aggrieved by the decision, then you can seek remedies in the judiciary. But this thing, a petition has been brought. The Constitution says any member, any person can petition Parliament. But then a person brings a petition and then somebody else goes to court. Stop. Now, what is what? This confusion, we need to clear it once and for all. Honourable members. So I'm just saying this, because I think it is important that we have clarity. And if we could get some place where, once the decision is made at that high level, because in any event, a bill, an act of Parliament, for it to become an act of Parliament, a lot of effort has gone into it. A lot of research work has gone into it, both from the executive, from the members of Parliament here. Surely, to expect that just one single fellow comes and starts saying, no, it's not, surely, that is also not respecting the committee of the arms of government. We should think about where to place that power. Very well. Member for Muranga, you want not on this?
Mr. Speaker, I wanted to comment on the same matter, if you allow me.
2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, when I was listening to this communication, I was wondering then whether we are going to do any business in this House, because the judgment changes how the National Assembly will be conducting its role, and we know our role clearly is on legislation. And Mr. Speaker, we know that all bills must not be subjected to concurrence as per the provision of Article 110(3) of the Constitution, which may delay the legislative process. We know already we wasted a lot of time, Mr. Speaker, in this nation because of COVID. And so these are some of the judgments that are necessary at this time, Mr. Speaker. However, Mr. Speaker, the judgment does not allow to address the situation whereby the two speakers of the houses fail to reach an agreement. And this may lead to a bill dying before it has even gotten a chance to be deliberated on, and further it will curtail a legislative power of Parliament bestowed by it by Article 109 of the Constitution. Again, I see this judgment, Mr. Speaker, ignoring the express provision of the Constitution by allowing Senate to originate money bill, which is contrary to Article 109(5) of the Constitution, and which also provides that a money bill may only originate in this House, Mr. Speaker. Further, I also see this judgment also ignoring provisions of Article 114(2) of the Constitution, which gives you, Mr. Speaker, as the Speaker of this House, the role of forming an opinion on whether a motion makes provision for a matter listed as a money bill. And at the same time, Mr. Speaker, an amendment of the Constitution by judicial proclamation, which has not been provided for under Chapter 16 of the Constitution on how to amend the Constitution, Mr. Speaker. If you look at Article 259(1)(a) of the Constitution, it provides that the Constitution shall be interpreted in a manner that promotes its purpose, values, and principles. And so, in this regard, despite that the provision of Article 110(3) of the Constitution The judgment should have separated the disputed legislation between those concerning county governments and those that do not have any nullification, only nullification those that concern, and only nullify those concern the county government. And a repeat of the legislation process would not convert a bill that does not concern county government to one that concerns county government. This will only lead to wastage of public resources, Mr. Speaker. And so the Senate has admitted, Mr. Speaker, before in a report of a select committee on constitutional and legal review that it has a restrictive legislative role which regards to approval of the person for appointment to public and state offices. However, having admitted this, there was no basis of challenging legislation such as the National Cohesion and Integration Amendment Act 2019, whose main focus, Mr. Speaker, was the appointment of the commissioners to the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the cross petition filed by the National Assembly was dismissed on the grounds that it was filed to obfuscate the fundamental issues raised in the petition. The learned judges, Mr. Speaker, should have used the same criteria that used in the finding that the advocate or the first to fourth petitioners were properly in record despite not filing a notice of appointment, and they considered the substance of the cross petition as opposed to the procedure and other side issues. I want to say again, and I have heard people saying, Mr. Speaker, I think we need the BBI for sure so that we have somewhere where people can go and complain about the judiciary. And for sure, Mr. Speaker, this House is independent. We have many things that Kenyans are looking for. And Mr. Speaker, I pray that between yourself and the colleague, the Speaker of the Senate, can find it, in a way that you can be able to handle. This is Parliament. It is one House. How do we run to the judiciary when there are simple things that we can agree or agree to disagree, Mr. Speaker? For me, from where I stand, I see it as a waste of public resources. Even if you are going to appeal, Mr. Speaker, we are still using public resources. And I think Kenyans need this money more than before. So, Mr. Speaker, I pray that as we even look at the BBI and other issues that are coming on, we must look at the Constitution and see where we are going to get the clarity in terms of the work of the Senate, in terms of the work of National Assembly. So as one House, as a House of Parliament, we'll avoid these fights and wastage of resources. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, of course, more importantly is that quite apart from those challenges, as members of Parliament, you assist with the power to make and unmake laws. So if you are not happy about any law, you can always move for it to be repealed or delete any particular clauses that you are not happy with, rather than running up around there looking for people to interpret it for you. You are a member of Parliament, whether in this House or in the other House, so you can always move for an amendment after 6 months. Let's go to the next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Member for Tigani East. Honorable Kabeabea.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask a question on electricity on behalf of my bosses, who are the great people of Tigani East. And I rise to ask the question number 299 of 2020, which is directed to the Cabinet Secretary of Energy. And now the question goes: could the Cabinet Secretary explain the progress of electricity connectivity to all primary and secondary schools in Tigania East constituency, and how many schools are yet to be connected, noting the government's policy of ensuring that all public learning institutions are connected to electricity. Electricity is a question. And then question part 2 says, could the Cabinet Secretary also provide the list of all primary and secondary schools with electricity connection in the same constituency? And then Padrin goes and says, could the Cabinet Secretary also provide specific timelines within which the ministry intends to ensure that all public schools in Tigania East constituency are connected to electricity? Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Energy. Next question is by the member for Nakuru Town East. He has written to request that the member for Nakuru West, is it Honorable Arama, is to ask the question on his behalf. Honorable Arama? You have a card? Touch the intervention button, please. Yes. That's the member for Narok East. No, he said, is it you? It was you. Very well, Honorable Aramat. I said, I'm not able to give you the... What is the problem? Maybe you could stop touching the button so that we can... Honorable Baramat, you had been given the mic, but I think your fingers are very mobile.
Thank you, Speaker. I'm acting on behalf of David Kikaria, MP for Nakuru Town East. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that most elderly persons who are age 70 and above, and who the Cabinet Secretary for Health, is the Cabinet Secretary aware that most elderly persons who are age 70 and above and who holds valid NHIF cards are denied access to health services by hospitals due to government continual failure to remit their premiums and settle bills? 2, what is the current policy for those who data was not captured during the registration exercise? 3, what measures is the ministry putting in place to address the issues of non-remittance of funds for elderly persons to the NHIF account so as to facilitate their access to the much-needed health care services? Thank you, Speaker.
Very well. The question will be responded to before the Departmental Committee on Health. The next question is by the member for Lamu, Honorable Captain Rueda. Captain Rueda Obo. The mic is there. Or you prefer somewhere which is more visible?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Question 279/2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. 1. When does the ministry intend to have the construction of Bajumali seawall in Lamu County, which has stalled despite having been funded, resume? 2. Why is the construction abandoned? 2. Why has the contractor abandoned the site without meeting his construction obligation, and could the ministry consider engaging a new contractor? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of projects and the funds allocated for the construction seawalls in Lamu County, including the Mbajumali seawall project, indicating funds allocated on each project, the names of the contractors, and the amount paid to them from the year 2010 to date? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Question to be replied to before the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Sigowet-Soin. Koros, Honorable Koros, please. Give him the mic from Moise. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 281 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. 1. Would the Cabinet Secretary explain the rationale under which payments of historical pending claims was arrived at by the State Department of Correctional Services? Second, Mr. Speaker, why did the ministry decide to categorize the historical pending claims into regions, yet the claimants transacted business leading to the outstanding debts without any geographical considerations? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of financial institutions which loaned the claimants on the assurance of payment, and what steps has the ministry undertaken to cushion against accruing interest on the loans secured by the suppliers? 4th, what measures has the ministry put in place to avert instances of delayed and non-payment of claims, and when does the ministry plan to settle all the pending bills? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sorry. Thanks, Honorable Koros. Question will be responded to before the Committee on Administration and National Security.
And Mr. Speaker, I'm also requesting for your indulgence to raise some concern about this question, Mr. Speaker. I think in most instances, Mr. Speaker, we have been experiencing a lot of problems also with the CSS who don't want to appear in these committees. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we also need your guidance on CSS who like giving a lot of excuses and sending their PSS and CAS. What's the way forward, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Well, I think the chairs of committees they understand the standing orders. There's no CS who is allowed to give excuses. So if there are those ones, then you need to raise the matters with the committee during the hearing, so that the matter can then be addressed and if need to be escalated. If people don't appear, you can still have them summoned properly, not just invitations. So I hope the question will be responded to. Let's get to the next question by the member for Lamu West, Honorable Mudama. What is the problem? What is the problem? What is the problem now? Proceed.
Thank you. I raise to ask question number 286/2020 to the Cabinet Secretary, Tourism and Wildlife. Question 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a list of all persons who have lost their lives or have been injured due to human traffic wildlife in Lamu West constituency since the year 2017, and the status of compensation for the families affected all injured. Question 2. What steps have the ministry taken to strengthen the newly established Community Wildlife Conservation Committees, that is CWCCs, considering the challenges of funding, coordination, and communication on compensation matters? Question 3. What plans does the ministry have to avert the increasing incidences of human-wildlife conflict in Lamu West constituency, given that most wildlife in this region reside outside the gazetted and protected areas, including the long-term solution to address numerous cases of snake bites, especially around the Manda Island, Hindi, Barigoni, Witu, Tewe in Bahari Ward, and Lekiamu also in Bahari Ward. Thank you.
Well, the question will be responded to before the Committee on Environment and Natural Resources. Next question by the member for Malava, Honorable Malulu Ijedi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have to ask question number 290 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Question 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why most local flights in the country are operating on full carrying capacity without observing the COVID-19 protocols, whereas public service vehicles are strictly observing the protocols? Number 2, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the statistics of passengers on local flights of Kenya Airways from the time they resumed flights during the COVID-19 pandemic, indicating the carrying capacity and the actual number of passengers on board during each flight? Number 3, what measures have been put in place to ensure that all local airlines adhere to and observe the COVID-19 protocols at all times? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question to be responded to before the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Teso North, Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask question number 294 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development, and Public Works. Roman 1. When will the construction of the parking lanes on Road A104, Northern Corridor at Malaba area, which serves Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, and Eastern DRC, start? Roman number 2. What plans does the ministry have, if any, to fast-track the commencement of the project, considering that there are a lot of challenges which are experienced by the motorists on that road? Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
To be responded before the Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. Next question by the member for Baringo Central, Honorable Kandie.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to ask question number 300 of 2020, and this goes to the Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Culture, and the Arts. 1. Is the Cabinet Secretary aware that the construction of Kapkiai Athletics Camp in Baringo Central constituency that was funded by national government for up to 60% has stalled since 2010? 2. What measures is the Cabinet Secretary undertaking to ensure that the project is fully funded and completed, considering that it will serve as training camp for both local and international athletics, therefore generating the much needed revenue and boost to economy to the surrounding community. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question to be replied before the Departmental Committee on Sports, Culture and Tourism. Next question by the member for Soy, Honorable Kostani.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 301 of 2020 to the Cabinet Secretary of Interior and National Government, Coordination of National Government. Roman 1, provide the total number of gazetted and non-gazetted police roadblocks across the country. And number 2, Mr. Speaker, to outline why non-gazetted police roadblocks are allowed to operate. Mr. Speaker, if you may just allow me to add on this, is that driving from here to Eldoret, you have, I counted the other day, Mr. Speaker, 14 roadblocks between Nairobi, from Kangemi, up to Nakuru. I've just been consulting with my friend here from Limuru, and he passes about 6 in order to get to Limuru. Mr. Speaker, I think it is a matter of concern that citizens are suffering, and most of these roadblocks, you find that they only stop matatus and check nothing. There's a handshake, and the matatu is allowed to proceed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
They just do a handshake.
They just do a handshake.
The question will be responded to, including the handshake, before the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security. Last question by the member for Mumias East, Honorable Washiali Jomo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order number 42A, Sub-Article 5, I rise to ask question number 302 to the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock. Roman 1, what specific mechanisms has the ministry put in place to ensure that the receiver manager of Mumias Sugar Company is operating within the set guidelines and regulations, considering that the government owns majority of shares in the company? Roman 2, how much revenue has the receiver manager generated from the sale of ethanol, scrap metal, and any other revenue sources since the takeover by the receivership management, and how have the funds been utilized? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Well, to be replied before the Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. Do we have a second segment? Is there a statement? Member for Gilgil, what is your point of order?
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry, I've been trying to catch your eye through a point of intervention, and I wanted to point out something about what Honorable Koros said in terms of our questions to the CSs. I would give you an example. 3 months ago, I asked a question to the Health CS, and today they sent a written response to say that that question does not fall under them. Mr. Speaker, I would need to get your guidance, because that felt to me like an insult to the intelligence of your wisdom to this House, because you referred that question knowingly where it should go. So why did they take 3 months to actually respond like that? And Mr. Speaker, we have a challenge because this session is getting to a close. That question was about COVID-19 funds utilization. 3 months later, they say it is not in their mandate. So what does that mean, Mr. Speaker? Because I feel like the CSs are also taking this House for granted, not only the committees, but also the leadership that is led by you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The only unfortunate bit is that I am not seized of both the question and the answer. So I may not be able to respond unless we now refer it to the chair of the committee to respond, because I don't know what the question is about, so I have really no details about it. Honorable Chege, Wajiru Chege.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the issue that has been raised by Honorable Mother, it's on a question that was raised and addressed to a CS Health. And these questions on the matters of utilization of the COVID fund money that was done by the KEPSHA, which is the organization of the private sector. And that is what the ministry responded to, say that that is not their mandate. And that was the private sector raising funds to be able to help Kenya at the COVID times. And so they say they have no answer for how the money has been utilized unless we contact KEPSHA directly. Mr. Speaker, but the issue that was raised, I think, by Honorable Koros on the attendance of the CSs, it happened even today within my committee where we had invited the CS, and we have many questions where they sent the CS to attend, and they said the CS was in Mombasa in another meeting. But what really was disappointing, Mr. Speaker, is that even the statements that were brought by the CAS, they were meant to be signed by the PS, who had not signed, and another officer, junior officer, had signed 4. So even the person who was to present, the CAS was presenting a statement signed by a junior officer for the PS, and not even owned. The statements were not even owned by the CS. And at that point, I think we have done now twice or 3 times where officers have come, and members have really felt that the ministry has not treated the committee fairly, and they have actually disregarded the invitation. And today we had to ask the CAS to go back, and we requested that we have the CS held coming. With the COVID times, Mr. Speaker, and you know the COVID is rising, we expected as a committee that the CS or even the ministry, even if the CS was not to be available, they said he was in Mombasa, but they would have carried, even the answering of the question with a bit of some, let me say, decency, Mr. Speaker, where we cannot just have a CS coming to read a statement that she doesn't own, that has been signed by a junior officer and presented to the committee. Surely, Mr. Speaker, I think you need to give us a direction and directive on how, as chairs, we should be handling those matters. If the CS is totally not available, is it the PS or the CS to appear, or how should we as a committee treat such a matter? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It may well be that the answer could come from any of those people, but a statement purporting to give an answer must be owned by the Cabinet Secretary. If they are going to, if those statements are meant to be tabled before Parliament through its committees, because we don't know those other functionaries, and who knows them. So you need to get the Cabinet Secretary to own any statement, any answer, even if it's going to be read by the what do you call those others? Something, CAS. Yeah, and I'm sure the Honorable John Bandy will tell you that he answered several questions, but he never assigned them. So, and that we cannot go below that. We must remain with that as a standard. And if any Cabinet Secretary is not appearing, and the committee has reasonable grounds to believe that the Cabinet Secretary is deliberately failing, neglecting, and or refusing to appear, then proceed to use follow the standing orders. We'll get them here for you. We'll get them here, so that we don't want to get members. Members are not asking questions for any part. It is in their representative role, and therefore it is wrong for any government functionary to assume that they can just decide to ignore Parliament. We shouldn't. And we see them appearing in other places where before people who have no oversight authority over them, So they must appear. You are the people who exercise oversight over them. Yeah, just look at that 95. Remember for Nyando, what is you appear to be.
bill concerns counties or it doesn't, must be followed to the letter. Mr. Speaker, there is a matter that my colleagues have not touched on. I want to touch on this matter, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is it fair game that somebody can mislead the president 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 24 times to assent to bills, Mr. Speaker, that are unconstitutional, and we just sit back and that is okay? Mr. Speaker, consequences must ensue. It cannot be, Mr. Speaker, business as usual that the President of the Republic of Kenya has been misled 24 times on unconstitutional bills, and people have done that, just walk scot-free. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, on the matter of COVID, you have told us, Mr. Speaker, to be a lot more vigilant, Mr. Speaker. I've just seen this afternoon that a school in Teso, 52 students have tested positive and 6 teachers. Mr. Speaker, something needs to be done. We have relaxed. We are behaving as though we are living in normal times, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know whether this is the time now to reconstitute the ad hoc committee on COVID or what we need to do. But Mr. Speaker, some action needs to be taken. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kamar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to join my colleagues. First, in congratulating ourselves for taking the walk to the High Court. Some of us had never walked across Uhuru Highway, but we did because of your leadership, Mr. Speaker. I want to also congratulate the team that led to this very successful judgment. I want to thank the Senator Orengo, who was the leader of the team, Senator Mogeni, the Senator Motula Jr., and all those who contributed in one way or the other, because this is a landmark ruling. Mr. Speaker, this is not just for the Senate, it is for the country. It is putting things right so that there is order in the nation. When Article 110.3 was articulated, it was not meant to undermine anybody. It was not meant to create any competition between one speaker and the other speaker, but it was supposed to put order in the way we do things. Mr. Speaker, we should not have had any negative competition between the 2 houses because both houses are literally working for the same people. So it was even wrong for the other house to imagine that they can seek signatures and approvals from endorsements from the president when actually they have not articulated. I like the way the judgment was done, that even at the point of saying, oh, this is going to be costly, the judge has said you should have thought about the costs before you offended the law. So I think this is bringing us back to a very orderly way of doing things between the 2 houses, and I think we should take it from here, Mr. Speaker. It is very clear that we have had statements that don't really befit negative competition, including that of saying even Senate was supposed to have been closed. How do you close Senate when you want to do devolution? We know very well that the function of Senate or the role of Senate is basically on the interests of the counties and the county governments. If that is not if Senate is not there, there is no way we can deal with the interests of our counties. Mr. Speaker, the BBI is here. 35% is going to be given to the counties. If that money is going to be put in, it is even more important now than ever that the Senate is strengthened so that it can do its representative and oversight role, particularly this oversight, Mr. Speaker, where we've been talking about funding for oversight that has really never come through. There is no way that the 5% of the resources of this country can go into hands that cannot be scrutinized. We must see transparency in expenditure. We must see accountability in expenditure. We must be able to make everybody account so that we are not just coming here to read the reports of the Auditor General and looking at post-mortem reports 5 years after the governor has retired. We really need to be up to date, and it's very important that Senate is now put in its own position. And I think this is one thing else also that we must deal with when we are dealing with BBI, to make sure that Senate is in the rightful position to be able to do the oversight of the funding, which is going to be quite substantive. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support the statement that you have made this afternoon. Thank you.
Senator Chariot.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this one is for the history books. This one has made me proud to be a senator. I'm so happy for the day and the resolve and the decision that we took as a House on that day to first of all reaffirm our commitment to Article 3 of our Constitution, that we shall defend our Constitution at every instance. This is one such instance, Mr. Speaker, where as a House we resolve that it is more important to be united as a House of Senate than to be divided along the usual parochial party lines that we are so used to, yet on most occasions, Mr. Speaker, end up being to the detriment of this House. On this particular issue, Mr. Speaker, we spoke with one voice, and as a House we can learn. There are so many things that are good for Kenya, that are good for devolution, that are good for the Senate, but cannot be achieved until we have the kind of resoluteness that we had on this matter and the unity that we showcased to the country, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to celebrate and join the rest of my colleagues in appreciating the works that was done by our colleague senators, the senior counsels that have been mentioned, members of staff who serve in our litigation and compliance department, who worked hard to ensure that Senate and the Constitution of Kenya is defended, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I'm really proud of our colleagues, and I appreciate the work that they were able to do in ensuring that these 23 laws that are not in compliance with the demands of our Constitution, as per the dictates of Article 110(3), Madam Speaker, are nullified until such a time, and only until such a time, that the National Assembly will come back to its senses, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, if this is not an indictment of a full House, if this is not an indictment on the leadership of a country that signed these laws, because, Madam Speaker, I do not buy the political narrative that I see being peddled here this afternoon, that the executive, that the president wasn't properly briefed and did not know that this law did not meet the demands of our Constitution, Madam Speaker. I am sure that they knew. But because we have come to a place where we believe that the culture of this country is such that anything that the Senate says can be ignored, they chose to ignore. But long live our judiciary, Madam Speaker. Long live the judges that made this very wise decision and ensured that from now going forward, if you read this ruling, Madam Speaker, is that it puts a stays even on legislation that is active before both houses that have not met the demands of Article 110(3) of our Constitution. Madam Speaker, if that is not great for this House, I do not know what else is. This is perhaps one of the most important rulings that devolution has secured in the last 10 years of its existence since this current Constitution was promulgated, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, therefore, I join my colleagues in congratulating the team and reminding them that let us remain vigilant. Let us be watchful. Let us not forget, Madam Speaker, that 2 days before this matter was argued before the High Court, that a decision had already been made to withdraw. In fact, I can now confidently report to this House, Madam Speaker, that I was made aware by people within the precincts of the Parliament. I will not say if it is staff or if it is members who love devolution, who spoke to me in confidence and told me, Senator, if you guys do not stand up and agree that this case be withdrawn, then you cast the day that you brought, that you served in this house, because it shall no longer be business as usual. And we stood firm as a house, and that is why we are here to celebrate. Finally, Madam Speaker, there's an issue that I had my colleague, Senator Sylvia Kasanga, mention. And I feel that we need to canvass it properly, because I feel our women senators, women colleague senators sometimes miss the gist of this debate. It's not that we are opposed to having a male or a female senator elected in a county. Our argument is against the watering down of the position of a senator. You can be a man or a female or a woman, but that position must be respected. If you are not saying that you can have a male and a female MCA, a male and a female member of National Assembly, a male or a female governor and president for that case, why the Senate? You are weakening the institution and the stature of the Senate, and that is what we are opposed to. My good friend,
Senator Mbogo George Ochila Yako.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my neighbor Senator Kasanga is trying to incite me to respond to my very good friend, the brother of Moses Aaron. Madam Speaker, since I have limited time, the ladies can defend themselves. I'll not defend them on this one. I will just talk about what is before us. Now, Madam Speaker, I want to congratulate all of us. Madam Speaker, all of us stood firm. Madam Speaker, all of us were focused. And I want to say that without standing firm and without staying focused, we would not have instructed the Speaker to go to court. It was every member of this House, the focus and commitment, that instructed the Speaker and moved the Speaker to lodge this matter in court. It is the commitment and the determination of each and every one of us that instructed Senior Counsel James Orengo, together with the able team of lawyers, to go to court. Madam Speaker, it is with our firm instructions as members of the Senate that we did not buckle and agree to a settlement that would have been lopsided. So we all deserve accolade, we all deserve congratulations for the firm and consistent position we took on this matter. Madam Speaker, I will congratulate your office, the office of the Speaker, for taking the instruction seriously and marching with us to court. You deserve a pat on the back and you deserve accolade. I will also thank James Orengo and all the lawyers, including myself, for acting on the instructions without demanding payment, being selfless. Madam Speaker, we all, as lawyers of this House who went to court, deserve a pat or pats on the back for the stand we took. Madam Speaker, I also want to commend and praise the court for not cowing, not bulging to any threat, including the threat of not being funded, because this is a very important matter. Madam Speaker, I want to say that there is a misconception that Senate represents counties, or the purpose of Senate is about devolution. I want to say that Senate represents the people of Kenya in the context of their devolved activities. So Senate, just like the National Assembly, have concurrent jurisdiction in representing the people of Kenya. We as senators represent Kenyans, and every Kenyan lives or has an interest in one county or the other. And when we speak for counties, we do not speak in abstraction. We speak as representatives and defenders of Kenyans in their county or devolved interests. Therefore, any person who would like to minimize the role of Senate by saying that Senate's business is a county business gets it all wrong. So it is important, Madam Speaker, as I conclude, that now that the courts have set the record straight, we are beginning to get to a chapter that is found in the book written by Samuel Huntington about the third wave of democracy. Each time there is a wave of democracy, there will always be attempts at clawing back. There will be always attempts at pushing back there will always be attempts at taking away.
What's your point of order?
Madam Speaker, they are eating into my time.
Honorable members, please console in low tones.
Thank you for defending me. Madam Speaker, let us prepare to defend the gains we have had. Let us defend it here. We defend it in court. We defend it in BBI. We defend it on earth. We defend it in heaven with all our knowledge, with all our experience, and with all our strength. Thank you very much, and congratulations to all of us.
Thank you, Senator Mwenye Haji Mohamed Faki.
Asante Mr. Speaker kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa iliyosomwa na Mheshimiwa Speaker. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwanza niruhusu ni wape kongole Speaker pamoja na bunge zima la Senate kwa uamuzi wao kwenda mahakamani kuweza kutetea haki ya kikatiba ya bunge la Senate. Mheshimiwa Speaker, vile vile nawapa kongole mawakili wote ambao walihusika katika kesi hii, tukiongozwa na Mheshimiwa Orengo, Mheshimiwa Okongo Mogeni, Mheshimiwa Mutula Kilonzo Junior na wale wengine wote ambao tulikuwa kwa nyuma tukitoa mawazo na vile vile usaidizi wa wengine. Mheshimiwa Speaker, nilikuwa na Senator Okongo wakati kesi ilipokuwa inazungumzwa, na kwa hakika alizungumza kwa ujasiri mkubwa akisaidiana na wakili Masi ambaye yuko katika panel ama yuko katika jopo la sheria katika bunge letu la Senate. Mheshimiwa Speaker, vile vile ningepanga kuipongeza mahakama kwa kuweza kutoa uamuzi ule, kwa sababu imetoa uamuzi wa ujasiri kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba imetangaza sheria karibu 29 kuwa zimepitishwa kinyume cha sheria. Mheshimiwa Speaker, jambo ambalo ningependa kusema ni kwamba wakati huu ambapo tuwapongeza mahakama, kuna majaji 40 ambao wamechaguliwa na tume ya kuajiri ya mahakama ambao Mheshimiwa Rais amekataa kuwatangaza rasmi na kuwaapisha kama majaji. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kitendo hicho kinahujumu katiba, kwa sababu JSC ikipendekeza majaji waajiriwe inapendekeza kwa sababu wamewafanyia ukaguzi, wakafanyia kila kinachotakana kufanywa kuhakikisha kwamba majaji wale wameweza kuchaguliwa. Kwa Mheshimiwa Speaker, hatuwezi kupigania uhuru wa Senate ama Senate iweze kupata nguvu zaidi wakati mahakama inaendelea kuhujumiwa na sheria na rais. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kamati ya sheria ya Senate iliweza kumuita nafikiri mkuu wa sheria kuja kuzungumzia swala hili, na mpaka sasa hatujaweza kupata utatuzi kuhusiana na swala la kuajiriwa kwa majaji 41. Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni majuzi tu mmoja wa majaji ambao alikuwa amependekezwa aliweza kufariki dunia, na hivyo ndoto yake ya kuwa jaji katika mahakama kuu ya Kenya ikaweza kudidimia wakati alipofariki. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Speaker, tunapozungumzia taasisi za kikatiba ni kwamba lazima tuhakikishe kwamba taasisi hizi zinafanya kazi kulingana na sheria. Hatuwezi kuwa na taasisi ambazo hazina mamlaka kikatiba na vile vile tunategemea kwamba zitaweza kufanya kazi vile wananchi wanavyotaka. Kwa hiyo wakati tunapozungumzia BBI, Mheshimiwa Speaker, ni kwamba lazima uwezo wa Seneti kujadili masuala ya ugavi wa rasilimali iweze kuendelea kuwako. Vile vile Senate iweze kupewa nafasi, Mheshimiwa Speaker, ya kuweza kukagua nafasi zote zile ambazo zinaajiriwa katika serikali ili kuhakikisha kwamba kuna usawa na kuna ile tunaita checks and balances katika katiba yetu ambayo tumesema kwamba imekuwa tumeitumia kutoka mwaka 2010. Mheshimiwa Speaker, kwa kumalizia ni kwamba sisi kama Senate ni lazima tuwe macho wakati huu wa BBI ili kuhakikisha kwamba yale yote ambayo tumeweza kuyapata yanaendelea kuimarika, na vile vile tunaendelea kuliimarisha bunge la Senate ambalo tumeona kwamba ndio taasisi pekee ambayo inaweza kulinda ugatuzi katika nchi yetu ya Kenya. Asante Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Senator Orengo James.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me this chance also to contribute in regard to this historical moment, the decision made by the High Court in regard to the many bills which were passed unconstitutionally. Madam Speaker, the only thing I would add in congratulation to the Speaker is that I wish that instead of just naming the party as the Speaker of the Senate, we should have had the name of Kenneth Lusaka, Speaker of the Senate, so that in reference to this case, his name would be cited now and again. But I want to assure the House about this particular case, and in doing so, I want probably first begin by congratulating Senator Kongo Mugeni, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, and the other councils who are from the legal secretariat, Dr. Kello and Mercy Danji, and the office of the clerk in enabling us do this work. But I also must thank the former chair, Mr. Cheregai. I think a lot of people would forget that the basis for this case was actually established during his chairmanship, and all through he stood really firm. And the first appearance in court and subsequent appearances, the chairman was there, and Senator Okongo Mugeni continued to do the same work as chair of the legal committee and also as part of the legal team in the case. Now, this case, I think one must remember that the law actually in regard to the power of the Senate had long been declared during the Mutunga leadership in the Supreme Court. This is not the first time that the powers of the Senate are being spelled out by the judiciary. Indeed, in the case that went to the Supreme Court, when we took the National Assembly to the Supreme Court, we had asked for various legislation to be declared unconstitutional. But the Supreme Court declined to do so, but they warned the National Assembly that if they did not follow the procedure set out in the Constitution, the courts would not hesitate to declare such law as being unconstitutional. The Maraga Court also has made pronouncements on the basis of the law as stated by this particular bench in regard to Article 110, Sub-Article 3 of the Constitution. And going with the doctrine of precedent and stare decisis, this is now the law of the land. And I know that there may be plans to appeal against this ruling, but that will not go anywhere until they reach the Supreme Court, because the basis of this decision is the advisory opinion number 2 of the year 2014, I think, if not 2013. So I think we are in good territory, and this case is precedent setting, and I think in future we cannot hesitate going to the courts again, as we have demonstrated whenever there's such injustice. Madam Speaker, in the year 1942, Winston Churchill made a speech in the House of Commons and said, "I have not become the King's first minister in order to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire." At that time, Churchill really believed the British Empire, where the sun never set, will never be liquidated. But subsequently, it was indeed liquidated. Happily for Churchill, the crown on the jewel on the crown, which was India, became independent after Churchill had ceased to be prime minister. Of course, later on in the 50s, he again became the prime minister. But I'm saying this, Madam Speaker, that as a senator, and the reason that I offered my services in this case is that I believe that the Senate must continue to play its constitutional role, that role must not be emasculated, and that the Senate, without the Senate, the parliamentary system as designed by the Constitution will come to naught. Any attempt to dissolve this Senate or to emasculate its authority is undermining the authority of the Constitution of Kenya as by law established. And I truly believe that so long as we continue to have speakers who are determined, as Speaker Lusaka demonstrated, that Article 110, Sub-Article 3, still is part of the Constitution, the role of this Senate will continue to be the same, because the power and the authority to determine whether bills can come to this Parliament, to this Senate, has not been taken away and is not likely to be taken away. Now, the only thing that I wanted to say in conclusion, and I'm glad Senator Wako is here, sometimes in historical moments, until we watch out very well, you know, we can enter, as I've said before in this house, in lamentations. There was a time when we were trying to create a new constitutional order, or how to create the position of Prime Minister so that we could have the grand coalition. There was a lot of chest thumping, but I'm glad that when the two principals, asked Wako and myself to go and work on a draft of the new constitutional bill that was going to make it possible to have a grand coalition government. We did it knowing that the country was in a position where the country didn't want any less. And therefore, I want to promise this Senate that I myself have actually itemized 3 issues in this draft bill that we must look at very carefully. And I think the women have been very strategic, and everything to do with the women in meeting the gender balance. I think they played their role so well that nobody wants to touch that anymore. And I'm sure that it'll continue to be so, because I think they were being very, very, very strategic. Senator Mwaura, I want to congratulate you, because you've done some strategic thinking. You laid out a strategy, and I think the question of those living with disability, I think that's another question which has been resolved, and nothing is going to change it. I want to encourage senators that the last word has not been written. Article 217, Article 218, I think it's something that we need to look at, because the authority of the Senate may be taken away if you don't look out properly on these 2 articles. There is an additional article which is giving the cabinet minister powers to suspend funding going to counties. Again, if you don't watch out that very well, the powers of the Senate would have been taken away very drastically. But I think together we can make sure that in this process, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, I thought that somebody was in danger at the other end of the house. Yeah, but he has not been given the chance. But I want to say that so long as we continue to work together.
Sorry, there is a point of order from Senator Musuruve.
Madam Honorable Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity. And I want to ask, is it really in order for Minority Speaker to fail to acknowledge also my role in Naivasha when we actually presented the issue together with Senator Mwaura before the party leaders kindly with regard to issues of disability?
Unfortunately, my eyes were trailed towards Mwaura. That's the only reason. But Senator Musuruve, I cannot forget to thank you also, because I think you spoke about it so forcefully. So I'm just saying that, Madam Speaker, probably we need to organize a quiet Kamkunji, because we still don't have a referendum. Sorry. Can you give me 1 minute, Madam Speaker?
I will give you 1 minute because you are the leader of the team.
Yes. Now, I still think that, you know, we have a report which has been made to the President and to the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, but we still don't have a referendum bill, because that only happens when you have the final bill with 1 million signatures being taken to the Electoral Commission. I think we should quietly, retire into a kamkunji like we do many times and talk about this issue in a more strategic manner to ensure that not all is lost insofar as the powers and authority of the Senate is concerned. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Masayo Stewart Mochiru. Senator Masayo.
Shukran, Mr. Speaker. Shukran, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, pia mimi nataka kuchangia taarifa hii iliyosomwa na spika wetu kwa kuhusika na ile kesi iliyokuwa kule kotini. Mr. Speaker, kitu cha kwanza nataka kuwashukuru wote wale maseneta ambao ni mawakili waliweza kuwakilisha katika hii kesi. Hususan wakili James Orego na wakili Omogeni na vile vile Mutula Junior na mawakili wengine ambao waliweza kuchangia. La muhimu katika hii ni kwamba kesi hii wakati tukipeleka kotini sote tulikuwa tumekubaliana kwamba kulikuwa na dhulma ilikuwa imefanywa ambao hatukuipendelea katika zile sheria zote 24 zilizopitishwa bila kuhusishwa bunge la Senate wala spika wetu kuwa katika ile mahojiano kama hayo. Mr. Speaker, kipengele katika katiba cha 110 sheria ya 3 iko wazi kabisa ya kwamba ikiwa kabla ya bunge letu kukubaliana na bill, ni lazima maspika wetu wote wawili wa bunge la kitaifa na bunge la Senate waweze kukaa na kujadiliana kuhusikana na ile bill, wakiona kama ni special ama wakiona kama ni ya kawaida, wanaweza kuona itaanza ile bill itaanza namna gani. Lakini jambo la kusikitisha ni kwamba bunge la kitaifa kila siku limekuwa likipuuza, na hivi sasa ni kwamba imebainika wazi ya kwamba bunge la Senate pia liko na uwezo katika ile sheria inayosema kwamba hakuna bili inaweza kupitishwa bila bunge la Senate kuhusishwa. Mr. Speaker, ule uwerevu alikuwa akiufanya, Waswahili husema mwerevu hajinyoi. Hata ukawa mwerevu namna gani, hauwezi ukachukua makasi ukajinyoa. Mr. Speaker, sheria kama hii ya kuzembea ama kutotii amri katika katiba, ndio sisi tunasema ya kwamba mahakama imefanya jambo la muhimu kuweza kurekebisha na kuiweka sawa. Vile vile kuweza kuwapatia kongole wale majaji walioketi kusikiza kesi hii. Mr. Speaker, wameweza kufafanua wazi kabisa na kuweka kila kitu kinaga ubaga ya kwamba hamutachukua sheria kwenye mikono yenu na kufanya vile mnavyotaka. La mwisho, Mr. Speaker, ni kwamba sisi tukiwa katika hili bunge la Senate tunahitaji pia wale waweze kuelewa ya kwamba wale ambao ni wabunge wa kitaifa waweze kuelewa kwamba bunge kama hili la Senate ni bunge ambalo linahitaji pia kupewa heshima yake. Mr. Speaker, sheria kama hii ambayo imewekwa hivi sasa, tunatarajia kwamba spika wetu na wewe ikiwa mmoja wale spika unajukumika kusimama kideto ya kwamba hutatingisika na kwamba kila siku, hata iwe mchana hata iwe usiku, utaangalia kwamba haki ya bunge la Senate halikuweza kuzimika chini. Asante, Mr. Speaker.
Asante. Senator Haji Faria Ali.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this matter. First of all, I wish to thank the two senior counsels and Senator Mutula for making us proud and representing us very well. Not forgetting, Madam Speaker, Dr. Okello and his team, who are always so diligent in how, and who are also so professional and so knowledgeable that always contributes to the success of this Senate. Let us not forget them as well as we praise each other. Madam Speaker, it is not a mistake that this Senate has 3 senior counsels and not any other house in this country, Madam Speaker. Therefore, Madam Speaker, we are very proud of the senators who represented us well. And Madam Speaker, we all worked from here. Whether you are in Jubilee or NASA, all of us as a team of Senate started working from this house all the way to Milimani Court. Madam Speaker, I am so happy that did not go in vain, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if people are united, they can achieve anything, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I think even now, even when Senate, we generate a bill, because it's so unfair that we use government resources, you know, to ask for stakeholders' contribution, people to come there, give their feedback, and this house does a lot of work. Only for it to be said it is a money bill. Madam Speaker, I think in this negotiation process, let us have money bill as only funds from the consolidated fund. Once money has been transferred to counties, because this house is the one that is, tasked to legislate for county government, if the matter is not affecting what is affecting only money that is already appropriated to counties, I think it should be fully mandate of this house. It should not be called a money bill, because that money has already been appropriated, Madam Speaker. So as now people start talking, because initially the talks could not even start because there was, let's say, some people with a lot of air thinking that they are the super house, so Senate has no say on anything. So now that they know we have say in something, then I think people need to come to the table so that some of these things are clearer. And Madam Speaker, we can be able to every person, can give their views. The House can legislate. Look at an example of the ward fund, Madam Speaker. All the way from 2018, Senator Kangata, sponsored that bill. And because finance committee changed that, I mean, it became a finance bill eventually. But the proposals in that bill would have made sharing of resources at county level much more fairer, so that you don't have to be the one who has elected that governor. At least you would have gotten your own, share of the county government. So, Madam Speaker, those are some of the other things. Madam Speaker, I also want to to join Senator Nyamunga and Senator Fatuma Dulo in canvassing that Senator Cherargei, when he was the chair of JLAC, if he had moved the gender bill forward, then we would not have been in the list of people whose house is almost being dissolved. Only that now we are living because President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta has decided, let me take my time on that. Otherwise, we would have been dissolved, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, let us have people who are friendly to the other gender. Like I said before in this house, I came from an organization where the senior management of that organization, there was only one man. So the tables can turn. So let us not look at gender issues as women issues, but generally as gender issue. Anybody who has minority is seen as such. Madam Speaker, in terms of the Senate being weakened, I believe as long as Senator James Orengo is on the table, I think we will survive on that one, Madam Speaker, as a House. So, Madam Speaker, let us trust in the process, and I'm sure things will be right.
Thank you, Senator Ongeri. Samson Kegengo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me also add my voice to this very important historic ruling, a landmark ruling, and thank the team that represented us in the High Court. Let me also register I was a member of those group that energetically walked from these chambers here to Milimani High Court. One of the things that has come out pleasantly is reaffirmation and restatement of Article 110 as regards to the bills that may be generated by this House and also the National Assembly. There has been a very clear definition on how the Schedule 4 functions of the county governments that may have an implication or reference to money bills can be treated in this advisory that has been given by the court. That clarity has come out quite well because hitherto there's been one monopolistic tendency by the lower house, the National Assembly, in trying to adjudicate on matters on finance at the total exclusion of the Senate. Now, the High Court, the special bench, has redefined how this is going to be treated vis-a-vis Article 218, Article 205 of the Constitution, and the 110, I think both of them taken together in subsection 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5. That process has been defined. Like my colleagues have also alluded to earlier on, that we now need to define the process in our standing orders so that at no time will somebody short-circuit this process because it will be clearly known. And now I think the Speaker has been given a teeth to bite. He can put his foot down, our Speaker of the Senate, in concurrence with Article 110 of the Constitution, subsection 3, that before either House considers a bill, the Speakers of the National Assembly and Senate shall jointly resolve any question as to whether, as to whether it's a bill concerning counties, and if it is, whether it's a special or ordinary bill. I think now we have a local standard where we can put our foot on. Now, there are many other proposals in the BBI that will be coming before this. I don't want to anticipate debate, but one thing I just want to put forward is that let's take it in good spirit. There's no law which is punitive. The law is being made to improve whatever is to come to the future. And it's a futuristic way we look, it's the way we look at it that defines how we want to define that bill. And therefore, let's not prejudge any bill which may be coming before this House. My only advice at this stage would be, let's take it in its own stand. It must have emanated from the existing laws that we found ourselves in a very difficult position to implement, and therefore there is an innovation that has been made, or a certain amendment or adjustment or realignment of the laws in order to be able to accomplish, particularly the two-thirds gender rule. It's been a headache to an extent that some way has got to be found out on how to resolve this matter. With those few remarks, I thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Masitsa Naomi Shionga.
Madam, okay, thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you for those who are already wishing me to be the senator, the Kakamega Women Senator. I will be, and may the word come true. Madam Speaker, I want to thank you for this opportunity on the communication. Madam Speaker, I want to take this opportunity to thank very much our Speaker, Honorable Kenneth Lusaka, for the work they did with the being led by the legal team and the other members that day. History has been written. History was written that day. Madam Speaker, this House has been humiliated by the lower house. I always call it the lower house because even in the construction itself, it is lower. It is on the lower part of this compound. So, Madam Speaker, I want to say that where people think that justice cannot be given, that day they were proved wrong. Madam Speaker, let us not engage into sibling rivalry when it comes to constitutional matters. You might not be a pastor. You cannot be, it is not a must that you should be a reverend. You might not be even a member of parliament. But when God is on your side, you can make the rightful judgment. That day, Madam Speaker, the Senate was proved right. The National Assembly, as a sibling rival they can think about, was proved wrong. Madam Speaker, I want to state that there was nothing that we have been doing. There was nothing that we have been doing wrong. We have been putting our bills right. We have been debating in this House. We have been sitting in this House. We are paid because we are here to make laws. Only to find that our brothers and our sisters down there, they look at us like we are doing nothing. One day when they sit where we are is when they know very well that the shoe, the wearer of the shoe knows how it pinches most. Madam Speaker, the continuous violation of the constitutional rulings that is done by our lower house and the confusion they cause to our president to assent on laws that have not been agreed as a house or as a parliament, it's very humiliating, it is very wrong. They forget to know that justice that is done through a process that is rightful is justice that is delivered to somebody who is yearning to get the rightful justice or the rightful answer. Madam Speaker, there is nothing that can make you happy when there is a judgment that has been ruled in favor of somebody who has been, again I repeat, humiliated the way we have been humiliated. One day, Madam Speaker, the members who are sitting there, if they will come to this House, let them know that this House started by being the upper house. Other countries have respected the Senate, but our brothers and sisters down there, they think they are the people to speak for us. We are not here to be spoken for. We are here to make constitutional laws. We are here to talk for ourselves. We are here to represent and protect our counties. And that is exactly what we did. However, they think we came here to do sibling rivalries. We are beyond that. For the senators who are here, let us unite when it comes to these matters, and even if any other matters comes, let us unite so that we can show Kenyans that this House is there to be recognized, this House is written in unity, this House is there and it's up to the task. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I support the communication.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Ali Abdullahi Ibrahim.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also wish to thank the lawyers led by Senator Orengo. Madam Speaker, I think the National Assembly behaves like, younger siblings usually do, making unnecessary noise and talking ill of the Senate. But I think it's the right time the Senate stood up and tell them off. Now that the judiciary has supported the stand of the Senate, I think we should not allow any other entity, from whichever angle it comes, to try and dilute the work of the Senate. And whatever happens, whether it is, I don't want to say this or that, but I think the Senate has been empowered. And with that, we shall fight to make sure that we remain that way and keep it at that if not enhance it. The BBI should strengthen the Senate, but not, we should not go back with this judicial statement. Then everybody should see that the Senate's position should be to go forward, but not backwards. Madam Speaker, sometimes I get surprised when people talk about national and county. And you are told there are laws which do not affect counties. Which is this county? Or which is this country? Every country is made of counties. And I think we all know that. So there's nothing called a national, a country alone, which stands on its own without the counties. So all laws and everything that happens in this country must start from the counties. So this issue of trying to divide the country and the county should never be there. The other thing is that I think the Senate has been too lenient on certain issues. When it comes to the National Assembly, we should stand firm and deal with issues which come from there with all the force we have and with all the other forces we can bring to our side. Senator Shionga talked of the lower house, and I agree. This is the first house which was even built from the independent. This is where the National Assembly used to be before that other house was built. So this is the precursor. It is the pioneer of everything. As the pioneers, I think we should continue with our stand and make sure that things work out well. And I also want to urge, even if we have had discussions for those of us who are in Naivasha, some of the issues which are there are not very good, but we hope that these people are serious enough to make sure that without us saying this or that things work out for the betterment of this country. And we will support any issue which comes towards the Senate and enhancing the Senate. And we will not be ready to support anything that degrades the Senate or downgrades the Senate. Madam Speaker, with those few remarks, I wish to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Wako Naomi Jilo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm sorry about that. Madam Speaker, I stand to add my voice to this communication, and I must say that I'm very happy. As I also say thank you to the Legal Committee, Jailer Committee, where I currently belong, for every step that we took. The former committee, together with the chair, who really motivated us during that time. The senior counsel, who worked with the legal team, and the legal team that have always served us and Senate professionally. Madam Speaker, we have, this is a historic moment in our lives and in the history of our nation. Nobody expected things to come out the way they came out. When we walked that day to the court, to Milimani Court, for some of us, it was a very new experience because personally, I have never participated in any demonstration, and that was my first. So to walk from here to Milimani, of course I enjoy walking, but to demand for something, that was my first time. And again, to get into court, that was my first time. So I was like wondering, okay, but I thank God that I got that good experience. Madam Speaker, the court nullified the 23 bills passed by National Assembly without Senate input. If you look at what is happening between Senate and the National Assembly, it is a kind of competition. And many of our bills have died in National Assembly. And I think there is need for the leadership to sit together, to reason together, so that we can work together to grow our nation, but not to finish, each other, not to reduce, Senate strength or do anything that will harm and reduce our responsibility. Madam Speaker, by doing what we did, we have supported our Constitution, which is under threat. The 2010 Constitution that has given many of us opportunities even to be here, that has helped Kenyans to see that we are really progressing, is under big threat. But by this, we have protected our Constitution, and I think we should continue doing that. Madam Speaker, the petition was allowed and the cross petition dismissed with no condition. When I was going through that, there are three things that I picked. The first one, that the 23 bills were nullified. The second one is this. And then the third one is again at the conclusion, where it says, where it says that where it says that, sorry, I will come back to that. But as I'm saying, Madam Speaker, we must guard our Constitution, and that is what the Senate has done. And important to note is that National Assembly has been given, that is the third one I wanted to say, that National Assembly has been given 9 months to regularize the 23 laws that have been passed. That really encouraged me that, this, within 9 months, all this must have been regularized. So I want to congratulate all the senators who walked all the way from here to Milimani. Some people are really struggling to walk, but we made history, and today we are proud of what we did. We should thank all the people who participated and also who did that job that has really made us proud. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Harkura Kodana.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to support or comment on the Speaker's communication regarding the recent court case. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank first all of us because the decision of this Senate to go to court on this issue. Also, I'd like to thank our able senior counsel, Senator Orengo, Senator Omogani, and lawyer Senator Mutula, for representing the Senate pro bono and making sure that we ensure that our position in the Constitution is not eroded through backdoor by the National Assembly trying to claw away our legislation-making mandate by introducing within their own standing orders interpretation of what it means, how to determine whether a bill concerns county or not. And I thank the judges for coming out very clearly that you cannot use your standing orders to circumvent a provision in the Constitution. Madam Speaker, also in the last Senate, when we had issues of what the Senate can participate in terms of legislation, when the Division of Revenue bill became an issue, we went to the Supreme Court to seek an opinion on that, advisory opinion, which clearly stated that almost all matters concern county. So there was already that precedence that almost all matters concern county. But unfortunately, the National Assembly has been using the same interpretation of law to make sure that some bills don't come to this House. Initially, it was matters not concerning county. When it was advised that almost all matters concern county, it now became money bills. To the extent that the last time I had, there was a mediation between the two houses in determining what are these money bills. And the National Assembly went as far as saying that any legislation which creates a position which attracts remuneration is a money bill. basically then you cannot improve on legislation, because when you have to improve on service delivery, sometimes it requires creating an office. We have even created the office of a county attorney. Maybe that in the interpretation of the National Assembly will mean a money bill, because that is already a position which requires to be filled and which requires remuneration, at least. So we have to now make use of this ruling. We have to make sure that all those legislations, over 20 of them, which bypass this House, have to come back and go through the legislation process, right from publication all through. If to require mediation, so be it. Then we can now sit down and come up with a legislation which is in the interest of the citizen of this country, but not legislation which are passed mischievously because somebody is trying to create some mischief somewhere. So, Madam Speaker, thank you for giving this opportunity, and also I'll urge that we keep on making sure that we are vigilant, and especially in this time of BBI, we should make use of this, because my understanding is whenever there is a review of a constitution or any law, is to improve the existing institutions, to strengthen them, not to weaken them as we are seeing now. There are many issues which have been raised, and I thank my colleagues in the Pastoralist Parliamentary Group, and the points they came up with are the minimums which have to be addressed for us to get that improvement, for us to get that enhancement of our rights in this country, so that issues which you have been considering marginalization all this time are sorted out and not aggravated further in things like when you talk of the equalization fund, a fund which has a sunset clause of 20 years, already 10 years into its period, into its life, and it has not been implemented. We need to make sure that those constitutional provisions actually attain the impact Kenyans had in mind. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Mwaura Isaac.
Mheshimiwa Spika, ningependa kuchangia katika mada hii, na niseme kwamba ni jambo ambalo linapiga upato swala zima la nguvu ya bunge la Seneti, hususan uamuzi huu ambao umeweza kutupilia mbali ama kuweka shaka ama dosari sheria 23 ambazo zimeweza kupasishwa pasipo kuhusishwa jumba hili la mazungumzo na majadiliano. Kwa nini ninasema ninashabikia uamuzi huu? Ni kwa sababu, Mheshimiwa Spika, mwanzo tunafaa kukumbuka kwamba hatuna mabunge mawili. Tuna bunge moja la kitaifa ambalo lina nyumba mbili. Na nyumba hii ya bunge la Seneti sio tu nyumba ya kushughulikia masuala ya ugatuzi. Ni kuhakikisha kwamba masuala ya ugatuzi yanawiana na sera ya kitaifa. Na mara nyingi tunaona kwamba kuna kule kutokuelewa kwa nia ya bunge hili, hususan na mkono wa serikali wa utekelezaji. Mheshimiwa Spika, watu wengi hawajaweza kutathmini maudhui ya uamuzi huu. Ni kumaanisha kwamba jukumu la kuonyesha kwamba sheria yoyote ama mswada wote hauhusiani na masuala ya serikali gatuzi ama county, jukumu hilo sasa sio la bunge la Seneti. Jukumu hilo lipo katika bunge la kitaifa. Kwa sababu kama vile ambavyo koti limeweza kuamua, utawezaje kusema kwamba kuna sheria ambazo zinatekelezwa katika serikali ya kitaifa pasipo na maeneo ya county? Haiwezekani, kwa sababu ukiangalia nchi hii, hata hii Nairobi ipo ni county. Kwa hiyo, Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi wenyewe kama bunge la Seneti ningependa kusema kongole, hongera, kwa sababu hatukuweza kushtushwa. Hata ilikuwa wakati juzi tu unaona kama kuna midahalo kwamba tutupilie kesi mbali kwa sababu tunaweza kuwa na udhamini wa miswada kati ya maseneta na wabunge wa bunge la kitaifa. Lakini hiyo sio suluhu. Mimi mwenyewe nimeweza kudhamini zaidi ya miswada 5 katika bunge hili. Kazi nyingi tu ambayo tunafanya kama wabunge wa bunge la Seneti, lakini miswada hii hata iwe inaweza kuwasaidia Wakenya, inaweza kufungua masoko yetu yawe huria, mara nyingi miswada hii haiwezi kupasishwa katika bunge la kitaifa, ilmuradi kwamba miswada hii inahusisha mambo ya kifedha. Mheshimiwa Spika, nafikiri ni jambo ambalo tunafaa kuliangalia kwa undani. Tuweze kuona kwamba sisi ambao tupo hapa, swala hili zima lisiweze kutumiwa kuweza kudhoofisha nguvu za bunge la Seneti katika mchakato wa BBI. Tuchukue hii nafasi tuseme kwamba tufuatilie na huu uamuzi, kwa sababu nimeona katika vyombo vya habari kwamba bunge la kitaifa sasa limeweza kusema kwamba litakata rufaa uamuzi huu, na tuhakikishe kwamba kama vile tumetoka kule Naivasha kwamba vipengele hususan ambavyo vinahusikana na ugavi wa fedha kati ya serikali ya kitaifa na serikali gatuzi zote, kwamba isiwe kwamba sasa hivi hatuna ushawishi. Kwa sababu, kwa nini nasema hivyo? Ukiangalia vile ambavyo dhana zipo katika sheria zilizopendekezwa ama mswada ama rasimu iliyopendekezwa ya kubadilisha katiba, ni kwamba sasa hatutangojea mhasibu mkuu wa serikali aweze kufanya yale mahesabu na bunge la kitaifa kupasisha. Hapo kutakuwa na kasheshe, ni pesa zipi ambazo zitakuwa 35%. Kwa sababu naona muda umeyoma, niseme naunga mkono, hongera, kongore kwa wale ambao walikuwa wametusimamia, na hususan viongozi wa bunge la Seneti, vile ambavyo tuliandamana kama tukakwenda kule milimani, hatukuchoka. Wazee kama kina mzee Ongeri, nilikuwa naona kwa picha, nimemshika mkono mzee Amos wako, na tulikuwa kwamba tukiona hata kama tutaonekana kama tutadhalilishwa, lakini tukasimama na Kenya. Na nafikiri bunge la Seneti ni bunge la kuwaleta Wakenya kwa pamoja. Tuwe na malumbano, tuwe na sintofahamu, lakini mwishowe tutakuwa na uwiano. Asante.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Kangata.
Let me take this opportunity to congratulate each and every senator and also our colleagues who led us in this matter by offering their services, legal services, to champion this matter in court on pro bono basis. Let me also take this opportunity to congratulate the court for properly looking at the law, ensuring that they are guided by the fidelity to the law as it is, not as it ought to be. Madam Speaker, in jurisprudence, that is the philosophy of law, we have several approaches to law. There are those who look law as it is, the so-called positivist, and there are those who look at law as it ought to be, the so-called natural lawyers. Madam Speaker, when you look at the philosophy underpinning this good decision, you see that jurisprudence of positivism being imbued in this finding. And for me, I think it is positive. It expands our jurisprudence and also our knowledge of law. It ensures the Senate occupies the rightful place in the entire constitutional architecture of this Republic of Kenya. Madam Speaker, even without straining your mind, when you look at an act of parliament, it is called an act of parliament, and parliaments comprises of both the Senate and also the National Assembly. And therefore, it goes without saying, ideally, almost all forms of statutes should be subjected to concurrence, both by the National Assembly and by the Senate. Madam Speaker, I am aware that our colleagues will be filing an appeal to the High Court, to the Court of Appeal. I urge this House to be vigilant. We should to go and fight it out in the Court of Appeal so that we maintain this major piece of decision that has been rendered by the High Court. Madam Speaker, let me now dwell on the issue concerning BBI. How BBI is going to remedy some of the lacunas that exist currently in our Constitution. Madam Speaker, there has been some senators and other members of public who have been saying BBI is proposing to whittle down the powers of the Senate, to make Senate as an inferior house vis-a-vis the National Assembly. Yes, of course, we would have wanted more, but strictly speaking, BBI did not really touch on Article 96 of the Constitution, which is the one that grants or establishes the jurisdiction of a Senate. And therefore, the power of the Senate to legislate, to oversight, to make laws concerning counties, to represent counties, which is provided for under Article 96, has not been touched. Be that as it may, what we should be fighting for, and I belong to that school of thought, is to seek an enhanced role of the Senate going forward. We may need to retweak, those of us who support BBI, two things. One, we consider granting the Senate the power to vet various officials in the executive, for the simple reason that under BBI, we are proposing to domicile the executive in the National Assembly. And therefore, you cannot have ministers sitting in the National Assembly, but they are going to be vetted by their colleagues, members in the National Assembly. So if we want fairness, if we want objective vetting, allow executive to sit in the National Assembly, but the vetting be done by the Senate, because no senator will be sitting in the executive. Madam Speaker, the other thing we may need to consider granting the Senate is the power to initiate any form of bill. Currently, the so-called money bills cannot be initiated at the Senate level. Madam Speaker, as a result, several bills have gone to the National Assembly. They have been torpedoed. They have been deemed as being money bill, and therefore we cannot be able to proceed with them. I think to address that lacuna, we need to grant Senate the power to initiate any form of bill, whether money bill or otherwise. But on the larger scheme of things, when you look at the BBI, let me tell the nation, BBI has very positive provisions. Mr. Speaker, or Madam Speaker, I want to bring to the attention of Kenyans, why did we propose the so-called unexpanded executive as in the BBI? Several reasons. Kenya is an ethnically divided society. Constitutional design for ethnically divided societies differs with the societies that are not ethnically divided. Mr. Speaker, sir, I seek your leave. You had me about 5 minutes. I finish this point, please.
Nafikiri kwa sababu unawakilisha kiranja walio wengi kwamba unawakilisha upande wa walio wengi na kupatia dakika zingine 3 tafadhali.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. Ethnically divided societies, their constitutional design tends to differ with societies that are not ethnically divided. Mr. Speaker, sir, I refer an example of Belgium, Switzerland, Northern Ireland, where you have a major division between the so-called Protestants and the Catholics. They usually have a democracy that is called constitutional democracy. It has been explained very well by a writer called Arend Ligipart in his book or article called Constitutional Design for Divided Societies, that was published way back in 1994 by the Journal of Democracy. He has also written another book called Patterns of Democracy. And when you read his ideas, he argues that in ethnically divided society, you need to promote what we call consensus democracy. It has certain characteristics. Number one, it has what we call an expanded executive or a grand coalition. Number two, it has what we call a mutual veto. And number three, it has what we call proportional representation electoral system. And therefore, when you look at Switzerland, when you look at Belgium, when you look at Northern Ireland, and even other countries in Asia like Lebanon, where you have a division of the so-called Shia Muslim, Sunni Muslim, the Christians, you will see that democracy works very well by ensuring representation of each and every segmented group in that society in the executive, Mr. Speaker, sir. And therefore, BBI is proposing to establish that democracy in Kenya. Mr. Speaker, sir, this form of democracy is not new in Kenya at all. Between the year 2008 and 2007, Kenya was a constitutional democracy, strictly speaking. We inserted Section 15A in the 1969 Constitution to establish the position of a Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, sir. And that government, it has been evaluated as one of the most inclusive governments that Kenya has had since independence. Mr. Speaker, sir, the drafters of the Constitution of 2010 thought they can remedy that problem of ethnic divisions in two ways. Number one, they came up with devolution. And number two, they established what we call centripetalism. That is, electoral rules that are geared to give incentives to politicians to come up with coalitions that are quite large, that they can accommodate everyone. And therefore, we provided for
Asante sana kiranja walio wengi. Umezungumza vizuri sana kwa fasaha kama mhadhiri wa chuo kikuu masuala ya sheria. Nafikiri na serikali ni jambo ambalo ni nzuri zaidi. Sasa hivi nampa fursa hii Senator Gertrude Musuruve ambaye tumeshirikiana naye sana kuhakikisha kwamba haki za watu wenye ulemavu zimeweza kurudishwa katika ripoti ya BBI. Karibu.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to give a comment on the statement by the Speaker of the Senate. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, indeed it was really encouraging and a win situation to see that all senators were standing in solidarity and walking to Milimani. I remember that time, Honorable Speaker, I was just wondering, you know, in my mind, how I was going to walk to Milimani because of my disability. But somehow I found myself there, and it was very good that even my fellow senators were patient with me as I went up the rooftop of the vehicle. And I want to say that that demonstrated that actually, if we work together as a Senate, we are able to achieve, whatever we want, and that unity of purpose is good. And even though I'm talking about unity of purpose, Honorable Speaker, I should not be misconstrued that when we stand in solidarity against something that is noble, then it is a good cause. No, I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that yes, indeed, Senate is an upper house, and Article 109 states clearly that when it comes to legislative powers, how to exercise, it is very clear how it should be done, constitutionally. And I want to say, Honorable Speaker, that I was really excited when we went to Naivasha, and it was a really good moment where even the party leaders were there. We saw the Honorable Right Raila Amolo Odinga there, and I want to thank God, and I want to tell Kenyans that he really demonstrated that he is a leader that listens. And I want to thank him for giving us attention as persons with leaders with disabilities. Honorable Speaker, you can remember very well that he gave us his time, and we articulated very well the concerns of persons with disabilities in the BBI, and it was echoed very many times, when the President was addressing us of the gap they were seeing and what they were intending to do, and they indeed said that they're going to do something was going to be done concerning persons with disabilities. The President said that clearly, Right Honorable Raila Amolo said that clearly, and then also Senator Orengo said that clearly. So I want to say, to tell Kenyans all over and my fellow PWDs, kindly do not listen to rumor mongers. Can we learn to listen to our leaders and believe in them, because there's a way in which God works through our leaders, and they stated clearly, Honorable Speaker, if you can remember, that no one shall be left behind. And even Senator Orengo has mentioned many times that our concerns will be taken in. And however, Honorable Speaker, I want to tell Kenyans kindly and boldly, without a blink, that BBI is the way to go. Honorable Speaker, you can remember what has been happening even in 2009 when, and other times when we've been having post-election violence. It has not been because of the two-thirds gender rules and other things. It has been because of lack of representation at the top. But this has been sorted out in the expanded executive. And I want to say that it's a noble thing. We should embrace the BBI and have conversation and bear with each other, because we have one nation, one country that we must ensure that we are protecting, and we must support, right, Honorable Raila Odinga and the President in this initiative, because they have decided to forget themselves and they've decided to put Kenya first. So if they've decided to bury and put at bay their political ambitions, why can't we support them as Kenyans? Because, Honorable Speaker, I know you are Christian and you pray many times, and many times we were praying that we have peace in this country, we have peace in this country. So when God has answered us, and these two leaders have decided to come together for the purpose of Kenya, I feel that it's a noble thing that we must support BBI, and we must see also the gaps that are there, and we see how we can correct. And I want to say that let us give them an ear and let us support them for the purpose of this country. Congratulations, Honorable Amolo Odinga, together with the President. I can see that you have us, you put us first before.
Haya basi, nafikiri kiongozi Seneta Musurube ametangaza msimamo wake wa BBI, lakini niseme yeye ni mwombaji mwenzangu, na tutahakikisha kwamba hiyo rasimu, yale mambo ambayo tumeweka, hata kile kiti ambacho mimi na yeye tumekalia sasa kimefutwa, lakini zitaweza kurejereshwa, ndipo hata wengine waweze kupata nafasi kama hii, na ili walemavu wawe pia na nafasi, kwa sababu kama sio hivyo, hata hili bunge la Seneti halitakuwa na mlemavu yoyote, hususan kwa sababu ni vigumu sana kwa watu wenye ulemavu kuchaguliwa kwa sababu ya kunyanyapaliwa na jamii na kutengwa na mambo ya kifedha. Kwa hiyo nafikiri hilo limefika hapo. Nataka kumpa fursa hii sasa seneta wa vijana, Seneta Mercy Chebeni, na yeye pia atoe maoni yake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to join my colleagues in adding my voice to this statement. And first of all, I want to begin by thanking the leadership of this House. They've walked with us through this journey, and we are finally here. And also, I want to thank all of us for having participated in the walk towards the High Court. I remember that day I saw Senator Musurube in her vehicle, and really it demonstrated that we can all participate in this process of ensuring that the Senate is respected. I also want to thank the High Court for this great ruling. Really, they have it's a landmark ruling, and they have placed the Senate in its rightful place as the upper house, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it has also brought respect to this House, and also brought order back to Parliament with regards to how bills are processed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll be very brief, and my comment will only be on one thing. I think we need to have a way of ensuring that maybe a certificate is presented to the President before he signs the law or any bill. In this regard, Mr. Speaker, we will ensure that we do not come to such eventualities, Mr. Speaker. This is very embarrassing to the President. I do not know how 23 bills can be signed by him without getting to pass through this House, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate the leadership of this House and everybody really who took a step in ensuring that this House is respected and the Constitution is respected, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Asante sana, Seneta umewakilisha vijana, Seneta Mercy Chebeni, na umetupatia wazo zuri sana. Lazima kuwa na cheti cha kuhakikisha kwamba miswada yote imeweza kupasishwa katika mabunge yote mawili. Sasa hivi nampa nafasi seneta wa Homa Bay Moses Kajwang', lakini simuoni kama yupo. Kwa hiyo tuna seneta.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I am present.
Oh, pole. Nafikiri nilikuangalia kuna mahali ambapo unakaa kila wakati. Samahani.
Asante, Bwana Speaker. I know I've already breached the standing orders because I intend to proceed in English. Mr. Speaker, first of all is to congratulate every member of this Senate. We are great when we work together. When we first walked to the Supreme Court to seek an advisory on the role of Senate on the division of revenue and legislation affecting counties, we came out victorious and we came out stronger. When we walked to Milimani, to the High Court, to seek the opinion of the court on legislation that has been passed without the consent of Senate, we've emerged victorious, and we are stronger today. Mr. Speaker, I know that the other place or the other house has got a right to appeal, but these are some of the salient issues that we must try to avoid. One house of parliament suing the other is the equivalent of a husband and wife engaged in endless litigation. The nation looks at parliament as one entity. The fact that one is Senate and the other is the National Assembly, to many members of society and members of the public, they don't give a damn about it. All they require is for parliament to work in harmony, a yin and yang kind of situation, so that this parliament can deliver on the aspirations of the people of Kenya. And Mr. Speaker, I want to urge that instead of pursuing endless litigation in the courts of law, we must find a formula for parliament to sit down and give effect to Article 110(3) of the Constitution, which is couched in mandatory terms. The problem in this country is not the absence of laws. The problem in this country is the spirit and behavior of persons who are in positions of authority. We lack the spirit of constitutionalism, and that has further been shown in this particular matter. Mr. Speaker, there are those who think that the Senate is being weakened. My view is different. In the proposals in the BBI, 35% of resources will be allocated to county governments. That means that the scope of Senate's supervision and oversight over public finances has shifted from 15 to 35%. If with 35% of national revenues and the Supreme Court advisory and the High Court ruling, Mr. Speaker, this House is going to be the upper house. You do not have to write it in the Constitution that the Senate is the upper house. Look at two examples, Mr. Speaker. In Australia, the Senate, yes, is designated as an upper house, represents the states, and is a house of review. But the government sits in the other chamber, and yet the Australian Senate has been able to assert itself. Look at our neighbors down south, in South Africa. You've got the equivalent of a Senate, which is called the Council of Provinces. Even though it is defined as an upper house, it does not behave as such, because the Council of Provinces in South Africa has premiers, has got people who are elected from regional assemblies to sit in it. You do not need even that explicit description in the Constitution. That should not be a deal breaker. That should not be a showstopper. We cannot, as Senate, say that we are not going to support the BBI because the Senate is not designated as an upper house. I know many men in this chamber, Mr. Speaker, who are designated as husbands at home, but they are not any better than the wives in their homes. So power does not have to be written on your forehead. So, Speaker, let us seize the moment. And if the government is going to be sitting in that other house, this is a house that will put a brake on all the unconstitutional and illegal legislative affairs that will come from that other house. You can imagine if security laws were to come to the Senate after having processed in the National Assembly. So let us be courageous. I am so happy that in this fourth revolution, the focus is now on economic prosperity. And Mr. Speaker, I am excited that in the BBI, we have put issues like a digital infrastructure, sustainable agriculture, and sustainable economic development as economic principles. Whoever is going to run this country with the new or the amended constitution must ensure that the conversation moves around regions, the conversation moves around hustlers and others. The conversation is about prosperity, because it is only in a prosperous society that our young people, our women, and all segments of the economy, all segments of society will have an opportunity and will feel proud to be part of a nation called Kenya. Finally, Mr. Speaker, we must also review our Parliamentary Budget Office that renders contradictory opinions on money bills in this parliament. That needs to be fixed because it's part of the problem. I support and I congratulate the legal team and the entire House for this wonderful development.
Tonight on KBC Channel 1.
He is Devadatt's disciple and the tax collector of the